Tell me about your experience speaking at Ryder here today.
It's pretty much like the horses I bet. It started out slowly and then weakened. No, it was good.
You seemed you didn't really talk about yourself a lot unless someone asked you. Like a lot of people in the New York industry, if they're a sports writer, they just tend to talk about themselves all the time. You seemed more worried about helping those people in the audience, those students. You know, I thought that.
Thanks for noticing that. I try not to use I, me, and my, and I as often, in my columns. I've just gone through a whole litany of them, me, my's. But thanks for noticing that. I was here to try to help.
Since you started your Equal Time column, what has been the fondest memory you've had over those years?
They're recurring. I think the most gratifying thing is when I hear from young adults and new parents and not so new parents who will write and say, I thought you were the biggest pain in the rear end. I thought you were nothing but a whining son of a gun who just nitpicked and picked at everything, a miserable, no good guy. I like it when people just recognize that even if they don't agree with me, that I'm writing for them.
You write about things that some of us may think about, but we never really have the guts to start any huge discussion. You seem to be the voice of those people. Like you just said, you bat for the batless. You have, the power and authority. You write for the New York Post. You seem to be the voice of those people who want to talk about these issues, who think that they should be talked about, but they just don't have the power to do it.
Jim, pandering is the great nemesis of what ails us now politically, socially, throughout sports. That nobody wants to hurt anyone's feelings. Nobody wants to tell hard truths. Say nothing before you say something you don't believe. It's sort of like all the trash talking and John Madden hated what he used to call woofers, guys who talk trash and did stupid things on the field. Yet it got into his video game, so it was such a component of his video game, all this trash talking and dancing, that he had to say on the air, "Hey, I love that stuff." He didn't believe that, but he did it for a buck.
Do you think money is what drives all that?
Yeah.
Is
ultimately
absolutely anything else?
No. Now there's nothing that TV money can't buy. We're speaking on a Wednesday now. There'll be a college football game on a Wednesday tonight for ESPN money. College football is not played on Wednesday nights. It was class time.
Do you think sports is a right or a privilege?
I think sports is a ritual. I don't know if it's a right or a privilege. It can't be a privilege, can it? I mean, it's just something we do because we were kids, and something that lasted and sustained and persisted, and we passed along.
This morning, picked up a copy in New York Post and read your latest Equal Time column. One line stood out to me. You talked about NCAA football is at the, quote, point of can't return.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
I think we're in too deep. It's gone. I mean, the insanity fueled by money is so great that unless we blow it up, unless we start all over again, nothing was going to be learned from that Penn State thing. In fact, now the worst schools, as it related to recruiting and academic fraud and financial fraud, now the worst schools will be even more emboldened. They can always say, well, at least we're not Penn State. Okay, so maybe we recruited that criminal, but okay, maybe we let that guy play even though he just beat the hell out of his girlfriend, and okay, maybe we recruited a guy who can't read or write, but at least we're not Penn State. So it's actually going to drive it further and further down. It's going to create more rationalization. And we're still, it's not who's a yahoo for their college, an adult guy, a booster, some guy in town who lives to spend every Saturday at the 50-yard line. Who's gonna really have a perspective on that? Who actually provided their thoughts, prayers, and hearts to those victims, those the alleged victims of the accused pedophile. Who actually did that? Who actually got down on their hands and knees? I'm thinking about the kids. I don't believe that many people did.
When the students gathered at State College the night that Joe Paterno was relieved of his duties, there were obviously riots. We all knew about them. Do you think it was really about the victims, or was it about Joe Pa, or was it just about college kids wanting to gather someplace to be college?
That's a really good question, Jim. I don't know, first of all, whether that was prevalent. I don't know if it was a mandate provided by students, certainly enough to overturn some cars, okay. I don't know if it had to do about Joe Pa. I don't know. It might have had more to do with beer than anything else, for all we know. But, things have changed. I mean, we used to riot about Kent State. Now they're writing about the football team. So I don't know, but it's an excellent question.
What percentage of those students in that riot do you think actually thought about the victims during that riot?
Wow, I don't know. But I do know that as the biggest man on campus, Joe Paterno had the power to move mountains. And he didn't move that mountain, and that mountain certainly was going to turn into an avalanche that was going to swallow the whole campus. It was inevitable. How did they think they could keep the lid on this thing? I don't know if they thought about that, but I think, let's never forget, there were TV cameras there.
At the end of the Penn State-Nebraska game, Penn State was defeated, the players from both teams knelt down in prayer. Do you think that they did kneel down and, in fact, really seriously prayed for those victims, or do you think if no cameras were there, would have been different? I'm
very cynical. And I wasn't born cynical. TV has made me cynical. Sports have made me cynical. I mean, if Tim Tebow wants to genuflect, that's fine. That's everyone does. There's another thing. I mean, for years people would kneel in the end zone after scoring a touchdown. He did it, and he got mocked for it. So, yeah. But I'm very cynical. I think that was more public relations than sincerity.
What are the key traits that someone who aspires to be in your position, an up-and-coming sports writer, someone who at least wants to be a sports writer one day, what do they have to have, the intangibles to write in a tough city like New York?
They have to be extremely lucky. And I'm not trying to be flip. They've got to be in the right place at the right time on many times. They've got to be persistent. I believe they've got to be able to write and avoid cliches. One of the things that drives me crazy picking up my own paper, listening to broadcasts, is just every cliche under the sun, which is a cliche, every cliche in the book. They've got to avoid the trite. You've got to say what you mean and mean what you say. Keep it tight. Be persistent. Provide people something that they don't get elsewhere. Provide them with something beneath the surface.
What motivated you all this time to not only do your best work now, but when you were starting to get into the industry? What motivated you, or who?
I don't know. I got to tell you something. I was the worst kid you ever want to meet. I was a terrible student. I lied, I cheated, I stole. That I take this high stance, and I'm not. I tell a dirty joke. I will drink. I will gamble, but I would never advocate. I would never, let's want everyone to do it in excess and stuff. But what motivated me? I think it's when I went to college, and I had no one else to blame it on if I failed. When I got to college, I was on my own for the first time, and I couldn't blame that guy or that distraction. I was on my own. It was the old sink or swim. Now there's a cliche, and I succeeded. I succeeded academically, which is a discipline. Succeeding academically to me wasn't an endeavor; it was a discipline. it was a reward unto itself. Look, I could do this. So I got a 2.4, a 2.4, then a 2.6, and a 2.8, and then I finished up with 3 6s, and because I got into my majors, English and history, my great passions, and so I guess it was, in retrospect, it was going to college, and my mother had passed. My father was not a great communicator, very filled with love and support, but not a great communicator. And there was no one to lean on except myself. And so those college years were the best 12 years of my life. No, best 4 years of my life.